Brad, thank you so much for coming on. Let's talk about the now third annual LGBTQ Pride Day for the Sounders. It's one of those issues that the Sounders don't need to get involved in, and they're choosing to, and you're choosing to. Tell us why.
Well, for me, it's a no-brainer. I think I've stated it before that this is a inclusive city, and we want to be a part of that. We don't necessarily feel like we have to, but we want to, and I think that those two things are very different. And wanting to do something is a priority for us, and it's top down too.
Hmm.
It comes from Adrian. It comes from a lot of the front office, and it comes from within a group of players that is inclusive in themselves. We got a lot of guys from a lot of different countries, so we know the idea of bringing somebody in that necessarily sometimes can be on the peripheral,
Hmm.
and making sure that we're all together and we're all there for one cause.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because it is when you consider different cultures and different countries and their views on LGBTQ rights, they're not always necessarily in congruence with the Seattle
Yeah,
vision.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, not every country has a liberal view like we do, um, but that is up to players like myself to um, make sure that everybody feels welcome. I do the best that I can in the locker room, and a number of guys do. It's not
Hmm.
just me. A number of guys do to make sure that everybody feels welcome. And being part of that is whether you're gay, straight, bi, whatever it is, that it's part of it. In reality, nobody on our team, as far as I know, is uh, gay or bi. But if they happen to be, it isn't an issue. And I think that when you're speaking of a locker room, I think, and I've said this in the past, that a soccer locker room is probably the most accepting. Just
Hmm.
mostly probably because it's such a melting pot.
Is that why? I mean, it's interesting because I spoke this week to Megan Rapinoe, who said at least on the men's sports side, she still views it overwhelmingly homophobic. Not soccer specific, but men's sports.
I would agree with that.
Why? Why is that, and why specifically is
Well,
soccer that outlier?
I think most sports have this very macho persona that comes along with it.
You're macho. Come on, Brad.
I'm not macho. I am not macho. And I don't know if I can pinpoint why I feel that way. That I feel that soccer is. I think okay, we're still on our way to where we probably should be when it comes to an athlete or a player being or feeling accepted if they
Hmm.
were to come out. Obviously Robbie started the trend, and as time goes on, you'll see more as a culture and as a society. We get more liberal, I think. I don't know if I can pinpoint why I feel soccer is uh, more accepting than other sports. But when I'm around for the majority of football players or baseball players, I get this air of macho-ness.
Hmm.
And when I'm around soccer players, I don't feel that way. And maybe that has something to do with it.
Well, then what about you personally? Straight Brad Evans, what informs your background as to wanting to step up and being that person that facilitates the inclusiveness?
Probably how I was raised. Even growing up in Phoenix was probably a bit more of a Republican, more conservative state and city. My family was always bringing others into the house and making sure that our house was sort of like a safe haven. It's kind of where everybody hung out.
Hmm.
Girls, guys, the like, is kind of where we were. We were always at my house. We were always um conversing with my parents, not just hanging out as kids, but just everyone feeling together. And maybe that's why I feel um, and I enjoy putting that guy's arm uh, around me and around them as well, making sure that everybody's included and everybody's involved. Um, and I feel equality is number one, and to make a successful society, a successful team, I think that you have to have that in you. And if you don't, you kind of find people straying out and going different
Hmm.
directions.
And it seems like it's just part of the DNA, at least of the Seattle Sounders. The team seems to be at the forefront of this. And it's not to say that there aren't other MLS teams that care about this. There are clearly others that do, including Orlando, for example.
Yeah.
But it does seem like the Sounders are those leaders when, again, they don't necessarily have to be, but they choose to be.
Yeah, but I think you do have to be, because I think we're expected here to be at the forefront of an equal rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
We have a massive parade here, second or third largest in the country. And I think we do have that responsibility, and we should want to, but we also have to, because we are under a microscope here. And what we do here that's positive, I think that reflects, it spreads like wildfire. And if we weren't to do it, I'm not sure others would follow along. And I think that it's good that we take onus on ourselves and we put pressure on ourselves to express our views and our rights in what we feel.
When you look at the responsibilities associated with coming out on certain topics, pardon the pun, I suppose, there is that line that I suppose any athlete or team has to walk before they decide to get all in a potentially contentious issue. I imagine it's a little bit easier on this particular subject in this particular state,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly a business decision could be made to say, you know what, we're just staying away from anything political.
Yeah, well, listen, I think when you run a business, you can do it how you want. And I think that we've found that being on the forefront of certain topics, or treading the water on topics that may not be for everyone, that we've generally done it the right way. And that's a credit to having smart businessmen and smart owners in making sure that we're not purposely trying to exclude anybody.
Mm-hmm.
We're really only trying to include everybody. And I think when you phrase it properly and you go about your business the right way, it makes it easy, and it makes it very simple for someone to get behind. Of course, we're going to have those people who probably call the office nonstop and say, I no longer want to be involved with the Sounders. Well, we have a waiting list to bring in somebody who wants to be inclusive with the group, and very simple.
So 10 years from now, the next leader of the Sounders, or leaders when it comes to this issue, what do you want that to look like? As far as 10 years down the line, what it is this team has done for the LGBTQ community?
Well, I would hope that, being a leader in the locker room and setting an example, when you set up a team and you set up you want your team to be, you want a good spine, right? And that includes keeping players here for the long term. And it sounds weird, but you try to groom players in your likeness
Mm-hmm.
the best that you can, in making sure that you carry on traditions and what you feel is important to making a successful team, a successful city, and holding true to, I guess, your values. And there's always going to be guys in the locker room that don't agree. That's fine. But for me, as a leader of the team, as a leader of, what we're trying to do, is there's guys who will tag along as you don't even have to ask them to. Christian Roldan, Jordan Morris are going to tag along. And those are guys that will potentially be here for the next 10, 15 years if the club does the right thing. Of course, it's up to them. If they want to leave, they want to leave. But if I could have it my way, they'd be here for a long, long time. And those would be the guys that would step in line next and make sure that, they're doing all the right things in the community, and making sure that what we've done now for the past, 9, 10 years doesn't just stop once one person leaves.
Well, it's interesting because as I'm writing this piece for Sounders Monthly, I went into it thinking, I don't really know if I have that much to say, even though the activism from the club directly impacts me as a gay person.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like to separate out anything political, again, even if it positively impacts me, from just sports, because I do this for a living. I talk about controversial things on a regular basis. And then I started to think about how I would have felt when I was younger, when I was 13, 14, 15, and I was watching at the time baseball, and I saw someone donning a pride scarf. as if I saw someone who was actually openly gay in a community, in an environment where everyone was accepting. And then you start to think, like, yeah, it is kind of bigger than one particular issue. It is one of those things that is not even necessarily about one individual, but it's about everybody.
Mm-hmm. I think, like we said before, is we are in a spotlight. You know, I don't see myself most of the time as a pivot or as a celebrity, if you will. But at the end of the day, I think that truly we have a responsibility while the light is shining on us to do what we think is right, and to you know, push issues, but in the right way. And when I post something about, you know, being at the Gay Pride Parade, or wearing a wild feminist T-shirt, or wearing an armband that's, you know, a rainbow, you're going to get a little bit of backlash. But at the end of the day, there's 98%, you know, the comments are positive, and the direct messages are heartfelt and heartwarming. And that's what makes you feel good, you know, moving forward. And that, you know, kind of affirmation that, you know, you're doing the right thing. And ultimately, I think it's up to us, because our window is so short in this, you know, spotlight, if you will, to make a difference in something that we believe in. And, you know, taking advantage of it is, it's worthwhile. And I don't want to look back and say, you know, in 3 or 4 years when I'm done, and look back and say, man, you know, I had this opportunity to really, you know, make an impact. Why didn't I do it? I'd rather, I guess, ask a question later on and say, well, I did everything that I could, and feel good about it. So.
Well, you're certainly on the right side of history on this particular issue. It's certainly one of those things that it helps that everyone's organic about it and everyone is genuine about it. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I know a lot of people out there do as well.
Awesome.